One of the reasons that people give for not wearing seat belts is they say, oh, I don't have to wear my seat belt. In a car crash, I can put my hands out and stop myself. I'm strong. I lift weights every day. I have a lot of upper body strength. I can stop myself. Let's see if that works. Coming back over to the board and looking at Newton's second law, F equals ma. Remember, he's saying here that a force consists of two things: the mass of an object times its acceleration. A reminder, acceleration is just a way of saying at what rate are you changing speed. So acceleration is change of velocity. That triangle there is what we call a delta, and it means change in. A change in velocity over change in time. So expanding Newton's original equation, we can say force equals mass times the change in velocity divided by time. Let's take, for example, you have, say, a 200-pound man who can press a good bit more than his weight. Let's say that the force that he's able to press is 250 pounds. Let's assume he weighs around 200 pounds. It has been shown that the average collision happens in only 0.2 of a second. So the time we're dealing with here is a very, very short period of time. If we know his mass, the force he's able to apply, and the time of the collision, we can calculate what velocity can the car still go and have that person be able to stop themselves just by putting out their hands and bracing themselves against the dash. Now, in physics, we use what we call SI units. So in physics, our mass is not in pounds, it is rather in kilograms. A 200-pound person has a mass of about 90 kilograms. The force of 250 pounds that they can press in SI units is what we call newtons. 250 pounds is about the same as 1,100 newtons. And again, our 0.2 of a second. So if we have a person with a mass of 90 kilograms who can press with a force of 1,100 newtons, they get in a collision, the accident happens in about 0.2 of a second, the velocity at which that car can travel, and they still have the strength to stop themselves, is about 2.5 meters per second. Now, 1 meter per second is a little over 2 miles per hour. So that means that the maximum velocity that those people can travel and still stop themselves is only about 5.5 miles an hour. Now think about what this means to you personally. A person with substantial strength who can press more than their own weight with their upper arms can still only go a maximum of about 5.5 miles an hour in a car and still stop themselves. Do something for me tonight. When you go home, take a bathroom scales and get about an arm's length from the wall, press the bathroom scales up against the wall, and see how much you can press with your arms. Go through this same calculation. Take your weight, your mass, take the maximum force that you can press, and see how fast you could travel in a car without putting your seatbelt on. I think you'll agree that you need to buckle up before you even leave your driveway, because at even very low speeds, you cannot stop yourself with your own strength. You have to have that seatbelt on. Carrying that one more step, we don't very often just go 5.5 miles an hour. Think about what happens if you're traveling down the highway at 55 miles an hour. 55 miles an hour in SI units is the same as 25 meters per second. Recall that acceleration is a change of velocity over change of time. Let's say you're going down the highway at 55 miles an hour at 25 meters per second. Acceleration means speeding up, but it also means slowing down. So that if you hit the brakes and slow down, you are negatively accelerating. You are decelerating. If you have a collision and you suddenly stop from 55 miles an hour or 25 meters per second, you are still decelerating. And remember, that takes a force, because whenever a mass is accelerating, if it's changing velocity in any way, a force is acting on it. All right, let's see what is involved here. You're going down the highway at 25 meters per second. A collision occurs in about 0.2 of a second. That means your rate of deceleration is 125 meters per second per second. 125 meters per second square. You already know that gravity is what gives your mass your weight. Your own weight is 1g. That is gravity at 10 meters per second acting on your mass. That's how we define your weight. So if you were just being pressed with your own weight, that is 1g or 10 meters per second. This is 125 meters per second. That is 12.5 Gs. That means that if you're going down the highway at 55 miles an hour and you have to suddenly stop, or a collision occurs to suddenly stop you, you have 12.5 times your weight acting on you. Well, that sounds like a lot, but can we relate it to something we know about? We've all been to the amusement park. We've all ridden on very, very fast roller coasters, or a ride like the Mind Bender that goes in circles very rapidly. About the most that any amusement park ride will generate will be somewhere between 3 and 4 Gs. And that's at only one part, the fastest part of the roller coaster, the top of a loop-the-loop ride. And you know how uncomfortable that feels. It feels like you're being pressed against the seat. It's almost impossible to raise your neck. And that's only 3 or 4 Gs. Think of having an accident going down the highway at 55 miles an hour, and you have 12.5 times your own weight pressing on you. 12.5 Gs. 4 times what the most violent amusement park ride presses on you. Now think about a person sitting in the front seat of a car holding a baby. Maybe the person is in the seat belt, but the baby is not. They're just holding the baby. Think about them going down the highway at 55 miles an hour. Think about a sudden stop, as could occur in a collision. The baby is not only moving at 55 miles an hour right into the dashboard, but they are moving at something like 12.5 times the force on their weight. So if you have a 20-pound baby in your arms, if it hits the dashboard, it hits it with a force of about 250 pounds. That would be the equivalent of taking a 250-pound weight and hitting that baby in the head with it. Babies cannot be held on your lap. Everyone in the car needs to be in a seatbelt. You need to trust Sir Isaac Newton's first law of inertia. You need to trust his second law, that force equals mass times acceleration, and wear your seatbelt for safety.